If you will please open with me to the book of Genesis. This is chapter 4, verses 2 onward. Now, Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a tiller of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel, for his part, brought the firstlings of his flock, their fat portions, and the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering. But for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry, and why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at your door. Its desire is for you, but you must master it." Now, this is a very simple passage and very short passage. And you'll say, what learning can there be in it? So, some of you may be going through your 1 year Bibles, and most 1 year Bibles have your readings beginning from Genesis. I have one 1 year Bible that I read, and I've been reading it now for 25 years. And I was on my flight to Bangalore, and I was reading this passage, and I wrote down this sermon. And it's only last Sunday that Pastor James asked me to speak. So I said, "Oh, I already have a message that is prepared." But this small passage is speaking volumes to me, and I hope that as I speak to you this morning, you'll be also able to understand what it has spoken to me. First thing you notice here is that there are two individuals involved. One is Cain, older son of Adam, and Abel, the younger son of Adam. And you find it says very clearly that Abel was a keeper of sheep, so he was a shepherd, and Cain, he was a farmer. So two individuals, two different professions, and in the due course of time, it says that these two individuals bring out an offering to the Lord. Now, if you read through Genesis 1, 2, 3, you find that there is no instance before this that an offering is actually presented before the Lord. So this would be the first sacrifice, the first offering that is ever presented to the Lord. And that's why it is important for us to learn this morning what the few points are that we can apply in our lives. First offering, now you say one was accepted, one was rejected. How did Cain and how did Abel know? One, are we supposed to bring an offering to the Lord? What kind of offering should there be? What are we supposed to do when there's an offering? We find no instruction in God's word before that. I would be inclined to draw a conclusion that when it comes to offerings, God had already placed in the very cells of our being that because we are created individuals, because we are created human beings, we need to bring something back to the Lord. So it's a part of a very nature that what we do, what we have, we just bring it back to the Lord. So that's how Cain and Abel both decided, oh, I'm a farmer, I'm a shepherd, I need to bring something back from the Lord. The second thing we notice is that the offerings were different. Again, it is not specified by God what kind of offering should there be. But it says Cain brings, he's a farmer, so he brings some of his crop. Abel is a shepherd, so what he has is sheep, and he brings the choices of his flock to the Lord. What does God tell man? Bring offerings, or what offerings? We just don't know. But here is the difference. It is the choice of what we bring to the Lord that makes the difference. If you notice here very carefully, the wording is Cain brings some of his crop. brought to the Lord. But look at what it says about Abel. And Abel, for his part, brought his firstlings, or the firstborn of the sheep. Very important. They're fat portions. Now, if you are a cook like I am, and some of you here are, you know that there is no flavor without fat. Because fat is the carrier of where your oil or the fat just absorbs the flavor and it just connects with your tongue, and that's what brings out the flavor. And if you don't know that, ask any cook. People are pushing air fryers and they say, oh, it's as good, but it's not as good. Nothing tastes better than fried food. Why? Because the fat is where all the flavor is. So Abel is taking that fat and bringing it to the Lord. So it's the choice of what we bring to the Lord that makes all the difference. It's not like what Cain did. Oh, I have some crop here. Let me just take it to the Lord. That's what the difference is. Abel's offering was specific. It was deliberate. It was choice. It was special, and it was desired. He desired it, therefore he wanted to give it to the Lord. Hebrews 11:4, you don't have to turn to it, but it says, by faith Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offering, and by faith Abel still speaks even though he is dead. So when we read further down in the New Testament, in the book of Hebrews, it shows that this act by Abel is regarded as righteous. Now let's unpack this and bring out some applications. We have already established that there are two individuals involved, two different professions, and you may say, oh, we are all diverse and we all have different occupations, we are different individuals. What is it that we can bring to the Lord that would be acceptable? I want to suggest to you that it doesn't matter if you are an Amit or an Ambani and what you have in your wallet that makes any difference to God, because He made us diverse, He made us different, He gave us different professions, and He gave us different abilities. It's not any of that. But what God is looking for is what's in your heart and what you are willingly, by choice, by specific, deliberate effort, that you are able to bring it back to the Lord. When the prophet Samuel was trying to choose the next king, and God told him, go to this household, and he goes to the household of David. Jesse, the father, and all his sons are there, and one by one the sons keep coming, and God says, no, no. But Samuel, every time he saw the next man, next brother, he said, oh, this must be the one, because he looks really smart, he looks really handsome, he looks very strong, he should be the king. And God tells Samuel that you are only looking at the outward appearance, but I'm looking at what's in the heart. And that's what's true for each one of us here. Whatever our diversity, whatever our differences, what you bring to the Lord is what was in your heart to give to the Lord. That's what counts. So we say, oh, I know that God is looking at the heart, and my heart needs to be right. How do we unpack that in real life? Where does the rubber meet the road? How does it translate to our actions? How does it translate to what we do and what we think? It says in Genesis 4:7, this is God telling Cain that if you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door. a desire is for you, but you must master it. God is saying, if you do what is right, what you do is well, if you do what is needed, if you do what is expected of you, will you not be accepted? Now let me paint a picture for you. He uses this word lurking, and I've titled my message, The Sin That Lurks. If you ever have time to watch a YouTube documentary, or if you are old school and you watch satellite TV and National Geographic or Discovery or any wildlife channel, I don't know if people do that anymore, but have you ever seen a lion hunt? And technically, it's always a lioness because the lioness hunts, the lion just enjoys the meal. But have you ever seen a lion hunt? So imagine with me this deer or some zebra. They're grazing the grass, and the food is there, and uh, they're having a nice nibble on the grass, and they're grazing away. And here is this pack of lions, and they think, oh, I need to feed the king lion, and I need to feed the babies, and I need to take care of this. And so they are getting ready to grab their meal. So what do they do? Do they just walk up to the zebra and say, oh, hey, I'm hungry, I need to feed my little ones? Come, let me grab your neck. Is that how it is? It is never like that. What really happens is you have this grass or you have this open land, and the zebra is, or the deer is far away. What is the lion doing? It just goes down. And if you've ever noticed the paws of the felines, they're padded. They are, you don't hear one foot after another. It's not like some of the women, they are walking down the stairs and they have the clanky heels and you can hear them, because what they're saying is, come and notice me. Come and notice my shoes. Come and notice me. I'm moving. Come and look at me. But that's not what the felines do. That's not what the felines do. They want to make sure that anytime they put their foot down, anytime they put their paw down, there is no crack of a twig. There is no rustle of a leaf. You can't hear. And the lion just crouches low. He's going like this, going like this, till the lion is within pouncing distance from the neck of the zebra. And God is using that word right there to remind Cain that that's how sin is going to creep up on you and grab you by the neck. And that's true for us this morning. We understand how sin works. Is never going to come knocking at your door and say, hey, hello, I'm here. Let's do something wrong. You're never going to know it. You're never, ever going to know it, but it's just going to be there. And you won't realize that those big, long, 3-inch teeth of a lion have grabbed you by the neck, and you cannot escape. Let's continue to draw out some applications and conclusions from this. The first one, offerings and sacrifices are innate and instilled by God in our very being. We see that in this passage that the desire for offerings and worship for God was there in man from the very beginning, because that's how he created us. That's the first thing that we need to remember. Second thing, offerings and sacrifice had to be a deliberate and best choice on our part, because we see that Abel's sacrifice was pleasing and acceptable to God. Shortchanging God in our offerings and sacrifice are sin in God's eyes. When God rejects what Cain brings in, that's what the reminder is. The sin of not giving God what he deserves is the sin that creeps up on us. In the New Testament, when Jesus was with his disciples in Mark 12:41 to 44, a widow comes in and she puts 2 small coins in the offering box. And Jesus is telling his disciples that what this widow gave was more than some of the Pharisees who took out the big fat wallets and put in the offering box. Why? If you've never understood that, understand it now, because for this widow who gave 2 coins is all she had, and she couldn't possibly give anything more. But the Pharisees with the big fat wallets, whether they gave or not, it wouldn't have made any difference. It wouldn't have pinched them one bit whether if the money went into the offering. Same thing about the widow that Elijah deals with in 1 Kings 17. The widow has just a little bit of flour, just a little bit of oil, and Elijah says, "Make me some bread first." The widow could have thought, "Oh, if I give this bread to this man, I'm going to be left with nothing, and my son and I will die." But she obeys God, gives out of nothing, because her heart was right. And that's the reason why she was safe and she was provided for the rest of the famine. So what's the conclusion here this morning? It's not the fact that we are rich or poor that counts before the Lord. It's our desire to give from what we have. It doesn't matter what occupation we are in. We could be teachers, or we could be businessmen, or we could be cab drivers, or we could be janitors. We could be anything. So let's expand that and really, really bring out the application. Let's talk about what we give God. One of the first thoughts that came to my mind when I was reading is all different kinds of applications, but what is the time that you and I give God on a daily basis? And my children are away, and 2 of them are studying in the US. And we keep asking them, how is their personal time with the Lord? Some of you will say, oh, it doesn't matter. He's not critical about what time you give him. But this passage made me think again, what time of the day am I giving to God's word? Is it the time when I have nothing else to do? Is it the time when I'm tired from the day's work? Or is it the time that just because of formality, we open the Bible and read a few verses? And some of you like to read daily devotionals like Our Daily Bread. Oh, just open one tiny flap and read Our Daily Bread, and my job is done. I have nothing against Our Daily Bread. Some people are blessed by it. But imagine this. Imagine this. We ask God to bless us so much, and we take just one tiny slip, one tiny small bit verse. I've done my job today. Think about it. And I want to suggest to you that the best time of your day, when you're thinking, when your mind is uncluttered, when your mind is fresh, is in the morning. Is in the morning. And some of you say, oh, I'm not a morning person. It takes me 3 hours to just start thinking. Sure. But that's when you are the most peaceful and the most quiet. And maybe that's the time when God can really speak to you, connect with you. That's the time you should give. Maybe that's the best time. Maybe 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, or whatever time. School going or college going students will say, oh, morning is such a big rush. I have to dash out. I don't even have time for breakfast. Well, that's the sin that's lurking around you and it's going to master you. Change your thinking. Change how you are organizing your life. Change how you're scheduling your daily timetable. Because that's what the passage is telling us this morning, that don't let the sin lurk around you. What happens when you come to church on Sundays? People say, oh, you are always on time. My parents, they're better than me. If I'm a minute late, they start panicking. And that's the level of timing that I grew up with. And for all his 82 years, my dad never missed church all his life. For us, when we think of coming to church on Sundays, you put all of it together and you say, okay, if I'm not on time, sure, I'll just miss the opening prayer, or I'll miss the opening reading of the passage, maybe just a song here and there, but I'll be there for the message. And that's what counts. But then, have you prepared yourself from the night before? Remember the choices and the fattest lamb, first fruit? Have you prepared yourself from the night before that maybe your clothes need to be ready, maybe your bag needs to be ready at the door to go out? I have the odd job of making sure that 24 sets of batteries are all charged for each Sunday. So I make sure that I don't forget them. Otherwise, the microphones are not going to work. So I put the batteries at the door so I don't forget. So that's preparation, that's choice, that's selecting what you're going to give to God. That matters. Because if you're not doing that, if you're not being specific and purposeful about going to church, coming to church, that sin that's lurking around the corner and is about to grab you. Talking of church, what happens when when you come to church, the offering bag is going to be passed. Now, for some of us, offering, when the offering bag comes, you just take out the wallet and you see, okay, I have this much, put something in. I want to suggest to you this morning that that's behaving like Cain. God was very specific here, telling Cain that if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? So I want to suggest to you that your act of giving an offering to the Lord starts the previous week. You think, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing this week. Some of you make money on a daily basis, or you have intervals of income, or you have a monthly income. You say, okay, this is what I'm making. And on this Sunday, I want to be able to give this much. That's what Abel would do. You're making it a specific, deliberate task in your life, a matter of choice where you decide what you're going to do for the Lord. It's not just a bumbling that, oh, the offering bag is here, or my wallet is not coming out. Honey, you take out your purse. It's not that. Your offering maybe should be an envelope ready to go in the bag because you have already decided that on the previous night. Because if you're not doing that, that's the sin that's waiting to grab you. Let's take it a little bit further. What happens that you're working hard all your life, you're studying very hard, you make the top grades, You get the college degree of your choice. And let's say you become this top-notch graphic designer and you're making the best products out there. And you come to church and you see that the church logo, and I'm not talking about our LifeBridge logo, it's done professionally. You see that your church logo has been done by the poor pastor who has no graphic intelligence. And you just keep quiet and you don't do anything about it because you say, oh, if I have to do the church logo, I won't get paid. Is something like that possible? That you have prayed for success in your life, and when it comes of what you can possibly do for God on a specific, deliberate basis, you don't want to do it. That's sin lurking around your corner, and maybe the lion has already chewed your neck. Or you could say God makes you this amazing web designer, and then you realize you come to church and your pastor has not updated the website in 5 years. You don't do anything about it because, again, you're not going to get paid. What happens to the best of the abilities God has given you? You don't want to use for Him. You don't want to use the best that God has given you back for Him. That's sin lurking and waiting to devour you. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. What happens when the pastor stands before you and says, we need volunteers for, let's say, cleaning the church? Or more recently, we had this 31st December potluck dinner. What do you do for a potluck dinner? Do you just make the rice? Or you make your best chicken curry or your mutton korma or your fish curry? The best of what you can give belongs to the Lord. Best, the very best, the fat portions, the choice portions, the most selective portions. What was the sin that God was reminding His people in the book of Malachi? That you are bringing to me all the blemished offerings. And then also He says that is sin. That is why you are not being blessed. That is why your prayers are not being heard. Why? Because you have withheld the best from me. You pray for a raise and God gives you a raise, and suddenly you say, okay, I want to buy a big car. And right where you are living, maybe a kilometer or so away, you have this other family that goes to the same church. Now you have this big car, but this other family is still on an Activa with 2 kids. And then you don't want to meet this family in church because you can't look them in the eye, because suddenly you have this big car and they're still on their Activa. And you don't want to give them a ride to church. You don't want to have anything to do with them because suddenly you are so much bigger. Would you not give back to God this gesture as an act of service that, hey, we are going to the same church. Let me help this family. Let me give them a ride and make the journey a better one. That's sin that sneaks up on you and grabs you by the neck. And I can expand on this. If we used to have this old sofa and I just gave it away, somebody said, oh, you're not going to charge for it? I said, no, why will I charge for it? Because my rule is if I get something free, I should be able to give away the same thing free. But I've seen many people do this, that they will get something free, but from the old that they have, they want to make money on that. The list of applications of sin that lurks around the corner does not end there. You have to look in your own lives. You have to see what is there, what God has given you. And again, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what profession you are in. It does not matter how much money you have. Make sure the heart is genuine. Your desire for God is pure. Your desire to please Him is pure. That what you want to bring to Him is the fat, juicy portion, what you have. Because unless you do that, God is not pleased with you. And if you are here this morning and you realize that maybe you have not given to God what rightfully belongs to Him, may I invite that we pause for a moment of prayer, because each one of us will be guilty of this at some point of time. Each one of us would have fallen short here of not giving to God what rightfully belongs to Him.